Hey travelers, Mag here, ready for another adventure on Hawaii's island of Oahu. For today, we're going to be taking on the downtown area of Waikiki. Located right next to the Honolulu airport, this is the first stop for so many of the tourists that come here to visit the island of Oahu, and for many of them, it's also the last stop. It is absolutely bursting at the seams with geocaches. As you can see from this map, it is at maximum density with all the geocaches located about 1,000 feet apart. It is also at about maximum density with muggles. There are going to be people everywhere at pretty much all times, all throughout Waikiki. So it's going to be a test of our ninja skills to be able to make these finds without anybody noticing what we're doing. There's a lot of beautiful sights to see in Waikiki, a lot of beautiful beaches, and a lot of surprises in store for us. So let's get out there together and see what it has in store. Come on, let's go.
We begin our journey through Waikiki on its eastern edge, along the border of Kapiolani Park and the Honolulu Zoo. The 300-acre Queen Kapiolani Regional Park is the largest and second oldest public park in Hawaii. This is a very popular park that I suspect I'll be seeing a lot more of in the future.
Waikiki extends from the Honolulu Zoo on the southeast end to Moana Park on the northwest end. It's only about a 2-mile stretch, but it is a very busy 2-mile stretch. I'm beginning here on the southeast side, right on the edge of the Honolulu Zoo. That's the giraffe enclosure right there. And from there, we're gonna follow the eastern edge of Waikiki, not the beach side, the other side next to the canalway, and we're gonna be following all the challenges to get to the north end, and from there we'll wrap our way back around to the beaches near the end of the day.
The 42-acre Honolulu Zoo occupies a portion of the Queen Kapiolani Park, showcasing more than 1,200 animals. It is very unique, as it is the only zoo in the United States operating under grants made by a sovereign monarch. The showcasing of unique animals began here as early as 1876, when King Kalakua began his collection of exotic birds and horses.
They've really pulled off quite the optical illusion here in Waikiki, making you feel like you're walking through a tropical green space, while really you're in the middle of an urban sprawl the entire time. So even when you're walking through the streets, you really just feel that greenery and nature all around you. It's a nice combination, and they pulled it off marvelously here.
Waikiki is a 3.4 square mile stretch of real estate that is arguably one of the most recognizable destinations anywhere in Hawaii. It is a relatively small area within the greater city of Honolulu, but its more than 20,000 residents comprise over 5% of the total population. Adding in the more than 70,000 tourists that visit Waikiki every single day, there are nearly 100,000 people in this relatively small part of the city at any given time. All that is to say, you are going to be hard-pressed to find anywhere on Oahu busier than this. And yet, despite that, there are plenty of places to enjoy without having to be shoulder to shoulder.
Hemmed in by this canal on its eastern edge, Waikiki is the true definition of a tourist trap. There's a lot of one-way streets that lead in here, but not a lot of streets that lead out. My first time in Waikiki, I ended up having to circle around several times before I discovered the few ways to actually get out of here. These one-ways, though, follow the edge of the canal, and they just kind of wind themselves back into downtown Waikiki. So it's a great place to stay and enjoy yourself, and it's a place you might have a hard time leaving.
The already inherent difficulty of escaping Waikiki is further compounded if you're here to go geocaching. The sheer volume of listings makes it difficult to put down your GPS once you've inked up your first logbook.
I keep talking about it, and it continues to prove true time and time again. I don't actually have that many geotools in my bag. Mostly camera equipment, but geotools, not so much. But again, that bag itself is the geotool I need to blend in and make the find, while still looking like I'm knowing what I'm doing in the area. And now to get something out of my bag.
While the downtown Honolulu area houses the Hawaii state capital, that was not always the case. Waikiki was actually the first capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii in 1795. A few small hotels opened here in the 1880s, but the first of the big high-rises began to be built in 1955. Following the rise of the Biltmore and the Sheraton Princess, many others followed suit.
These challenge hides are not intended to be difficult. In fact, they're intended to be pretty simple to find, so you don't have to search around with a bunch of people looking. You can walk up and make the grab very casually. Instead, the difficulty with all these challenges is in the requirements themselves. Because Waikiki is a destination for people coming from all over the world, the challenges reflect that. There are some that make you geocache across 4, 5 continents, have found so many types of caches in so many different states and things like that. So for the travelers that like to come into Waikiki, these challenges are made for you.
Right in the middle of the busy Waikiki area is a 71-acre green expanse known as Fort DeRussy, named in honor of Brigadier General Rene E. DeRussy, who served in the Army Corps of Engineers during the 19th century. It began as a bastion of defense, but today serves as a place for rest and relaxation for U.S. military personnel, families, and tourists. For the most part, it is open entirely to the public, containing a quarter of all the beach space here in Waikiki. It is also the place to start to visit the U.S. Army Museum of Hawaii, former home of the Battery Randolph.
What do you think? Is it safe to say this is the official geocache we're looking for? I would say, maybe.
Just around the corner from Fort DeRussy, I find my way into the Hilton Hawaiian Village, led on by a 5-stage adventure lab. This is one of the first early high-rises to reach toward the sky here on Waikiki Beach, opened to the public in 1955. It has come quite a long way from being little more than a collection of quaint cottages in the early 1920s to now being one of the largest hotels anywhere in the world. An impressive transformation.
The historical markers in Waikiki are also quite interesting. They're all in the shape of surfboards, so they're very easy to spot. And they give you a history of the area moving through the 19th century into the present.
From the southeast corner of Fort DeRussy, it is a smooth transition into the Hale Koa Hotel, which means House of the Warrior in Hawaiian. A very appropriate name, since this is an Armed Forces Recreation Center resort hotel owned by the United States Department of Defense. This is the go-to location for military and government civilians coming TAD into Hawaii. In fact, it's the only hotel I've ever stayed in on the island.
There are certainly a lot of micros to be found in Waikiki, and with this many muggles around, it's no wonder why. If you hide larger sized containers, they're much more likely to disappear when there's millions of people passing by all the time. But that's not to say that with the right hider in the right spot, you can't hide something significantly bigger. Look at the size of this container. This travel bug hotel is pretty much right in the middle of Waikiki, and despite that, it's in a really good hiding place. I picked up this travel bug yesterday from a geocache that wasn't quite so safe for travel bugs, so I'm gonna go ahead and leave it in here. Let's see what we've got going on in this geocache. All right, we have quite a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4 travel bugs inside. That's quite a haul right there. And a good amount of swag, as you can see there. And a nice size logbook too. This is a good geocache, and considering its location, for the fact it's regular, it's definitely getting a favorite point from me.
What I'm finding here in Waikiki is a geocaching flavor very reminiscent of many of the big cities we visited across Japan. An environment far better suited to walking than driving, filled with micros due to the high volume of muggles moving about all around you.
There can be little doubt that you found the prize you're seeking when the markings are this clear on the container. I know I have myself an official geocache, another find in the bag.
With a lot more difficulty than I might have expected, I finally find my way into the Eaton Square shopping plaza. Now, you would normally expect a shopping plaza like this to have many highly visible entrances, but that just didn't seem to be the case here. It took a complete walk around the block before I finally located an entrance to this one-of-a-kind open-air shopping complex. I suppose it's one of those places where if you know, you know, because the restaurants, shops, and supermarket inside seem to be doing just fine.
I have my doubts that I would have ever known that this plaza existed if not for the geocache to guide the way in here. Heck, even with the listing, I could barely find my way in here. I started around the corner on that block and ended up walking almost a complete circle all the way around to find the entrance in. But now that I know it's here and I know the shops that are here, it's a spot I suspect I'll be going back to.
But it is not a spot I'm going to spend much time in today because I'm on a mission to clear Waikiki, and it is clear that that is going to take me pretty much all day long. I press west out of the shopping plaza until I find myself looking out over the water and just outside of Waikiki.
All right, a few hours in and I've reached the northern boundary for Waikiki. Over the canal there is the outlying promenade, and just a little further over, the Moana Park. That is actually just outside of Waikiki, but because both of them are pretty neat spots, I'm going to take you across the canal, show you each of them before we circle back in and continue our journey through Waikiki, this time finishing up along the beaches.
Crossing over the Alawaia Promenade, I quickly head into the Ala Moana Center, once again in pursuit of an adventure lab. Each of its 5 stages brings you to a statue in what is the 8th largest shopping mall in the US and the single largest open-air shopping center in the world. This means you can look forward to a lot of walking as the stages stretch from one end of the mall all the way over to the other. Now, while I generally think of geocaching as an outdoors game, I would count this mall in that category since it is all open air.
I would have to say the most common hide style you can find here in Waikiki are these little tiny plastic containers in the holes of the signs. If you know what you're looking for on that, you've already got half the finds covered through Waikiki, so there you go, pro tip.
Now, while Moana Park is just outside the boundary for Waikiki, I highly recommend stopping in for a visit if you're ever in the area. Of course, for us geocachers, there's plenty of incentive to visit based on the listings alone, but this 100-acre park has a whole lot more to offer than that. The park has a wide gold sand beach that stretches on for over half a mile. Protected by a shallow reef offshore and man-made barriers closer in, there is virtually no wave action here to speak of. That makes it an ideal place to dip your toes into the water, drawing in about 4 million visitors each year.
Sometimes you've got to ask yourself a very important question. Is this just another rock? Or is this actually the geocache I'm searching for? In this case, well, the answer's pretty obvious, isn't it?
Not ready to return to Waikiki just yet, I push a little further west into Kewalo Basin Park, where I immediately come across a statue of Mother Mary Ann Koa. The plaque at her feet describes her importance to Hawaiian history and how she became known as Saint Mary Ann of Molokai. Born in 1838, she became more widely known as a founding leader of St. Joseph's Hospital before relocating to Hawaii in 1883 with 6 other sisters to care for people suffering from leprosy. She answered the king's plea for help enthusiastically after more than 50 religious organizations had already declined his request. Despite their close work with the patients, neither her nor her sisters ever contracted the disease.
The birds here can be quite entertaining, and if you ask me, these two have one of the best seats in the house, because from right here on top of their perch, they can look right out on the ocean on the other side of us.
I attempt to head back into Waikiki and almost make it before I once again find myself on a short detour, this time onto a small man-made peninsula known as Magic Island. It was created in 1964 with the hopes of turning it into a site for a resort complex, but was later converted into a park. All the better for me, because I immediately noted it as a place that I'm going to be coming back to again in the future. The paved trail leads all the way around the park, providing an optimal place to go for a walk and enjoy the ocean views.
I always find it rather unfortunate when there's a gate between you and where you want to go. Unless, of course, the gate is exactly where you want to go. And in this case, it clearly is.
It is at this point I realize the sun has dropped pretty far in the sky, indicating the hour has grown late. I set my sights on Waikiki just across the water, putting myself back on track.
I must admit, it was worth taking the little detour out of Waikiki to come through Moana Park and Magic Island, because I am really feeling the magic right here in this spot, and I know for a fact I'm coming back here again just to rest, relax, and look out over the water.
Crossing over this small canal really does feel like the difference between Honolulu and Waikiki. The presence of a natural barrier like this helps me to narrow in my focus to stay on track with my goal for the day. And that goal is to clear all of these geocaches before the sun goes down.
It's almost hard to believe how many geocaches just like this there are to be found in Waikiki. I gotta be honest, I feel like I'm being spoiled a little bit here though, because Hawaii is actually rich in terrain challenges. As soon as you go a little bit inland, you're dealing with mountains, waterfall, slick terrain, and lots of other stuff too. So I guess I'm gonna enjoy these city finds while I can, because I think a lot of the adventures in Hawaii are gonna be off on the trails and not so much in the city. But for now, more of Waikiki ahead.
Coming back into Waikiki from the west end, I look up and gaze upon one of its most recognizable monuments, the Rainbow Tower. Having recently celebrated its 50th anniversary in 2018, this mural was originally designed by artist Millard Sheets. It was unveiled to the public in 1968 as what was then the world's largest ceramic tile mosaic, spanning 286 feet high by 26 feet wide. It took more than 16,000 colorful tiles to complete the mosaic, which appears on each end of the tower. There are little tidbits like that to be picked up all along the way walking this part of Waikiki, as there are many Adventure Lab stages, each sharing with you a bit of its unique history. I try to strike a balance between completing the stages, finding the remaining geocaches, and still ending my day by sunset.
Some of these geocaches can bring you dangerously close to the muggles, This barefoot bar just opened up a few minutes ago, so it's not all that busy now, but I know for a fact in a few hours it is going to be jamming. And I know that because this is the Hale Koa barefoot bar, and I've stayed at this hotel before, and I know exactly how many people will be here in a few hours. So my timing was great to put this geocache in hand before there are people sitting at those tables right there wondering what the heck I'm doing over here.
Just a couple of blocks off the beach, the statue of King David Kalakua reminds us of the final days of the Hawaiian monarchy. His reign began on February 12th of 1874 and lasted until his death in 1891. It was near the end of his reign when he was forced to sign the Bayonet Constitution.
As you find yourself getting closer to the beaches of Waikiki, you're going to see a lot of these bins with flyers about advertisements for the different hotels and things going on in the area, and they also make wonderful places for people to go ahead and hide geocaches for easy finds all along the beach.
And it seems like each stop along the beach offers me something new to see. I doubt it'll feel new for very long though, as this is a spot I intend to be passing by on pretty much a daily basis.
And having already explored Hawaii in the recent past, specifically the island of Oahu, I've already found many beaches that are basically secluded, and you gotta walk out a little further for them. But compared to that, the little bit extra walk, totally worth it for me, as the Waikiki beaches are always crowded like this. So while I may walk through, find some geocaches, maybe get something to eat here, I will not probably ever be hanging out on the beaches of Waikiki. Pass through on my way to somewhere else.
But even I've got to admit, while the idea of laying out on the sand nearly elbow to elbow with the people around me is less than appealing, the idea of walking this beach to see what's going on every day sounds kind of fun.
This week in Oahu, we continue finding geocaches here in Waikiki.
On Kahui Beach stands one of my favorite statues, a bronze likeness of Duke Kanahomoku. Born on August 24th of 1890, he's recognized as the father of modern surfing. He stands on the beach with open arms, leis in hand, welcoming everyone to come and enjoy the water. He instantly became a local legend in his very first competition, where he broke the world record for the 100-yard freestyle. And that was just the beginning of what would eventually become an Olympic gold medal career.
I don't know if having a favorite type of tree is a normal thing. For geocachers, maybe more so than other folks. But for me, it's definitely the banyan tree. There is no tree cooler, in my opinion, than one of these.
A well-established banyan tree often appears as if it is many trees or even its own little forest. It spreads by developing accessory trunks from adjacent prop roots, enabling it to sustain its own weight as it expands ever outward. The largest of these itself covers an area of more than 3.5 acres.
Check this out. This is a map of Waikiki before I started geocaching this morning. Now, after walking all the way to the north and all the way back to the south, I've managed to turn all of those boxes into this. Now that's geocaching progress, and it's taken all day long, a great many hours, but well worth it, I would say.
Before my day comes completely to an end, I can't help but to visit the Roll of Honor in front of the Waikiki Natatorium War Memorial. It was built as a living memorial dedicated to the men and women who served during World War I, but has unfortunately been closed for some time. The city officially closed access to the public all the way back in 1979, and has been sitting idle ever since. And with an estimated renovation cost of over $25 million, it's not likely to change anytime soon.
Once again, on the topic of favorites, if there is such a thing, my favorite insect is the dragonfly. I like these guys because they hunt down other bugs, and they're just all kinds of friendly to people. You're sitting there relaxing in the water, not moving too much, it's not uncommon for them to come land on your hat, or even your hands outstretched. Come here, little guy. Come here.
With a great many miles now underfoot, I finally managed to bring my day back around to where it began in Queen Kapiolani Regional Park. Better yet, despite the many rabbit holes I followed today, bringing myself completely outside of Waikiki, I somehow managed to make my goal of clearing the entire area before the sun set down.
Alright, that's gonna do it for today's trip through Waikiki. We started at the southeast corner and worked our way all the way north, back around down the beaches, and pretty much just where we started off from the day. We're finishing once again now at the southwest corner in front of the Honolulu Zoo. We have found a ton of geocaches today, including letterboxes, earth caches, a lot of challenges, and a ton of adventure lab stages. If you're flying into Waikiki and you want to do some geocaching, you can easily spend a couple days, and I mean whole days, just geocaching the Waikiki area before you even get out to see the rest of Hawaii. which I'll be showing you in future videos. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, stay tuned for updates, and I'll see you out on the trails.